Melanie, I turn to you first. So with Joni Ernst, amazingly now a yes, are we looking at the next Secretary of Defense with his 5 sets of 47 push-ups before his morning coffee?
Yeah, I think Joni Ernst was absolutely the canary in the coal mine here. We kind of knew that she was ultimately going to get to yes. There was a question, though, of how she was going to get there, right? Was she going to try to show that she was being tough and she was grilling him hard and she was really taking it to him and then felt comfortable getting to yes? Or was she going to do what she ultimately did in this hearing today, which was try to sort of grease the skids for him and try to help himself. She was very nice to him, sort of bringing up things that he had said, reminding people what they had said in private meetings, how he had changed his mind on certain things. But I think the entire episode with Joni Ernst was really instructive about this entire nominee process, right? Because she is someone, if you had built someone in a lab of a Republican who was going to oppose someone like Pete Hegseth, it would have been her. She is a sexual assault survivor. She is a veteran, a woman in combat. He has faced sexual assault allegations. He has talked about how women shouldn't serve in combat roles, and yet she was facing so much pressure when she first started expressing skepticism about his nominee from the MAGA wing. She was facing primary threats that she ultimately caved to that pressure. And so that pressure to oppose him versus the pressure to support him, ultimately it became too great for her and she got to yes. But I think the fact that she is now in the yes column is a signal of what is to come, not just with Pete Hegseth, but I think with all of these nominees going forward.
Melanie, I had a follow-up question to you, but unless you turn around and put that adorable dog on your lap for the rest of this segment, I am not going to speak to you. Instead, I'm going to turn to Kate Kelly. Kate, explain to us what happened behind the scenes, okay? Joni Ernst, understandably, was an early skeptic of this guy. And what many of us, if we're in New York or in D.C., have no idea about the gargantuan pressure campaign Joni Ernst faced both in D.C. but also back in her home congressional district. Explain this to us.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Steph. So what I reported on the other day, which seems to be a sort of an unseen, below the radar element of the campaign to get Hegseth confirmed, is large and small, well-financed, well-organized outside groups that support President-elect Trump and his agenda, and along with that, Pete Hegseth and some of his other cabinet picks, are putting large amounts of money, millions of dollars, into ads and awareness campaigns, are doing take action campaigns. There's a group called the Article 3 Project that I wrote about. This was founded by Mike Davis, a sort of pugnacious right-wing lawyer who helped shepherd Brett Kavanaugh through his confirmation hearings in 2018 as senior counsel for nominations to Chuck Grassley, who then ran the Judiciary Committee that was considering Kavanaugh's nomination. He started this group. They have marshaled their followers through appearances on Steve Bannon's podcast or talking with other right-wing influencers, talking with Kimberly Guilfoyle, to have people go to their website, click through to call, message, or social media, post at their Republican senator. Charlie Kirk has done something similar. The idea is to pressure GOP senators into voting for Hegseth or bear the consequences, be primaried. That was one of the threats made very directly by Charlie Kirk to Joni Ernst on X, and it's been repeated by many others. Kirk said he was going to start what he called an encouragement campaign, having live rallies in various states with senators that he thought maybe couldn't be counted on to support Trump's cabinet. These are places like Utah with John Curtis.
But why are they so hot specifically on Hegseth, right? These are major GOP donors, right? You got Bill Koch in here. What's so special about this guy that they want to go all in and back him? He's a guy with a military background who talks on TV for a living, right? That's like huge people in finance, right? Putting $1 zillion behind me being the Treasury Secretary. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. Why do they like this guy so much?
I mean, I think it started, Steph, as sort of a timing issue, right? So back to early December, I think it was December 4th, where some of those initial really damaging allegations were made against Hegseth about his past conduct, drinking, infidelity, and of course, an accusation of rape. And within a few days, the Trump apparatus realized they were going to have to either replace him. Remember those rumors about Ron DeSantis being considered, or stand behind him. Now, of course, Trump stood behind him, which was the critical critical piece. But he also sort of directly or indirectly encouraged and marshaled all these other forces to rally behind Hegseth. So that Take Action campaign I mentioned started then. Others started exhorting their followers, their listeners, to take action and get involved with Hegseth then. And, even today, I went to the Vietnam Memorial first thing this morning, where there was a group of scores of ex-Navy SEALs, at least 3 congressmen that I encountered, including Morgan Luttrell and Derek Van Orden, who are veterans themselves, Navy SEALs, arguing that Hegseth is the guy. He's going to defend war fighters, and they're serious about it. I talked to women. I talked to men. They actually feel, first of all, they think that Hegseth is being smeared and that these stories about his problematic conduct aren't true. But even if they were, I've heard people say, look, this is relatable. We come home from war and we're not treated well. Our families break up. A lot of guys and gals have drinking problems. I've talked to a lot of people who told me they quit drinking after having problematic drinking after fighting in a war. So in a certain way, I don't think anybody's endorsing sexual violence. I mean, there are issues here that are, universally of concern. But I think on things like the drinking or going through a divorce or multiple divorces, a lot of people find that relatable.
Well, his personal issues were on full display today. I want to play a little bit more of that.
You've admitted that you had sex at that hotel in October 2017. You said it was consensual. Isn't that correct?
Anything?
You've admitted that it was consensual, and you were still married, and you just had a child by another woman.
Again,
how do you explain your judgment?
Completely false charges against me.
The incident in Monterey led to a criminal charge, a criminal investigation, a private settlement, and a cash payment to the woman who filed the complaint. And there was also a non-disclosure agreement, correct?
It was a confidential settlement agreement off of a nuisance lawsuit.
Right. During an interview, you claimed that you settled the matter because you were worried that if it became public, it might hurt your career. Many of your work colleagues have said that you show up for work under the influence of alcohol or drunk. I know you've denied that, but you would agree with me, right, that if that was the case, that would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense.
Senator, those are all anonymous false claims, and the totality
they're not anonymous.
The letters on the record.
Of course, he has denied all allegations of sexual misconduct. Mr. Dowd, what does this tell you about this moment in America? This kind of baggage is relatable? I'm pretty sure you remember when a nominee got nabbed for not paying his nanny's taxes.
Yeah, and a nominee for the innocent days of John Tower in 1989, who was a senator from here in Texas, who wasn't given his nomination because of drinking and some womanizing. He was never a sexual assault. He was refused by the Senate, nominated by Herbert Walker Bush. And so, I mean, I think I come away from this with two big takeaways, one broad and one sort of more specific. The big takeaway is I don't actually know what Republicans in the Senate, what's their standard for advice and consent. I mean, it seems as though they don't view their role any more than just as cogs in the Donald Trump wheel. And my view is if he gets through, which as of today looks like, but with this kind of guy, you never know. There's many a slip between the cup and the lip with this kind of thing. So you never know that something could come out tomorrow or the next day, or that causes maybe one or two people to pause. But it seems like if he gets through, then they're all going to get through. And then at that point, there is no standard, because by anyone's calculation, this guy is not competent to run the Defense Department. His personal life is a mess, which leads to a lot of problems that you could be compromised by foreign governments in the course of this. I mean, you can say to the womanizing and the drinking is a personal problem, but it's also a problem for the defense, the guy that runs the military, to be in that position, which is compromised in this. And so I don't know what the standard is anymore for a cabinet nominee. That's the one big thing. The other thing is, to me as a Christian, and this has happened over and over and over, but it was highlighted today. Every time he seemed to get into some trouble, out would come Jesus, 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 Jesus. One, it's offensive to use faith as some kind of hocus pocus magic trick to sort of don't pay attention over there, pay attention over here in the course of this. And the second thing, after the word Jesus would come, we need a lethal fighting force, and we shouldn't pay attention to the Geneva Convention. And oh, by the way, it's okay if we pardon people in the military who are convicted of war crimes. To me, it's such a commentary on what's happened, in my view, in our country today. One, the Republican Party abdicating their responsibility as vice and consent. But two, the use of faith today, not to sort of reform your behavior and to take responsibility for your actions, but it's used as a coverall to sort of get away with whatever possible you want to get away with, as long as you say Jesus after 2 paragraphs.
All right, Melanie, even if Republicans all get on the same page and they all vote to confirm all of these nominees, the hearings have to actually happen. And that's not happening outside Hegseth. Tulsi Gabbard is delayed. Kristi Noem is delayed. And they're saying it's a paperwork problem. I cannot imagine it's a paper jam in a printer on the Hill. What's going on?
Yeah, so there is this process, right? So they have to, the presidential transition has to submit the paperwork to the Office of Governmental Ethics. So what happened this time around is that the Trump transition did not submit that paperwork as early as past presidential transition. So that is delaying a lot of the paperwork here. In some cases, you don't know exactly what's happening with some of these, but in some cases, perhaps the initial information wasn't full enough. They have to go back and get more information. They have to add some things. So that could be contributing to the delays as well. But really, remember, it was the Trump transition who was refusing at the outset of this entire process to play by the traditional rules, to submit this paperwork. They were not submitting to the traditional FBI background checks on the front end. They were using their own private vetting companies. And even Republicans warned at the time, if you do this, this is going to cause delays on the back end because it has to get done either way. And so part of it is Trump's own making here and his transition team's own making while we're seeing these delays. And so that is causing a holdup. That being said, they are really trying to blitz through as many of these as possible. And they're also trying to get some of these actual committee meetings on the books, including Hegseth's. We're going to see that on day 1 of January 20th. So it's really not a question of if these folks are going to get confirmed. It's just a matter of how quickly. Are there any day ones that can get confirmed, like a Marco Rubio, who can get a lot of Democratic support? So we're just keeping an eye on all of those dynamics here on Capitol Hill.